Hello, everyone. A few years ago, I made a video about one of the common interpretations of the prophecies in the book of Daniel, as generally understood by Christians. In this video, I want to explain an alternative interpretation, one that is more interesting and more challenging to the Christian faith. But it also provides answers to the mysterious secrets that traditional Christian interpretations often fail to explain. So make sure to watch this video until the end, okay? All right, first let's start with a summary of the prophecies we're discussing in the book of Daniel. The first is the dream of Nebuchadnezzar's statue in Daniel chapter 2. Its head is of gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron and clay. Then there's a stone that smashes the statue. The second is the vision of 4 beasts coming out of the sea in Daniel chapter 7. The first is a winged lion, the second is a bear, the third is a 4-winged leopard, and the fourth is a terrifying beast with 10 horns. Then a little horn appears and uproots 3 other horns. After that, all the beasts are stripped of their power and perish. The third is the vision of the ram and the goat in Daniel chapter 8. There is a ram with 2 horns, which is later defeated by a goat with 1 horn. That horn breaks into 4, and then a little horn appears and defiles the temple. Then the fourth is the war between the king of the north and the king of the south in Daniel chapter 11. Now, the common Christian interpretation, because many of these prophecies mention the end times, assumes that many of these events have not yet happened. Especially regarding the little horn, the abomination of desolation, which is interpreted as the Antichrist who is yet to come. This may be because we want these prophecies to be about us. But what if our interpretation is wrong? What if it doesn't match our expectations? What if everything written in the book of Daniel has already happened? This is a Jewish book. How do the Jews interpret it? What was the book of Daniel really trying to communicate? Okay, I want to begin with the ram and the goat, which are already explained within the book of Daniel itself. The ram with 2 horns is Media and Persia. Meanwhile, the goat with the prominent horn is Greece. That horn breaks and is replaced by 4 kingdoms. We know this matches history very well. The single large horn refers to Alexander the Great. He died young, and his empire was divided into 4, led by his generals, who are historically known as the Diadochi, meaning successors. They were Ptolemy, Antigonus, Lysimachus, and Cassander. At first, the one who ruled the region of Judea, Canaan, or what is now called by some as Palestine, was Antigonus. Then came Seleucus, who was initially just a servant of the king, a shield-bearer, but eventually ruled the majority of Alexander's former territories. His government was centered in Syria or Babylon, located to the north and east of Judea. Meanwhile, Ptolemy ruled from Egypt, south of Judea. Judea was contested back and forth between the Ptolemaic dynasty and the Seleucid dynasty. Around 250 years before the Common Era, the Egyptian king Ptolemy II married off his daughter Berenice to the Seleucid king Antiochus II, on the condition that Antiochus II divorce his wife Laodice and make Berenice queen. After Ptolemy II died, Antiochus II betrayed the agreement by taking Laodice back. But then Laodice killed her husband, along with Berenice and her children. She then installed her own son Seleucus II as king of the Seleucid dynasty. The new Egyptian king Ptolemy III was outraged and war broke out again. Now, this aligns perfectly with the prophecy of the war between the northern and southern kings found in Daniel chapter 11. Then, in the 2nd century BCE, a king from the Seleucid dynasty named Antiochus IV Epiphanes emerged. Epiphanes means God manifest, but he was mockingly called Epimanes, meaning the madman. In his youth, Antiochus IV was held hostage in Rome because his father, Antiochus III, lost a war against Rome, resulting in the Treaty of Apamea in 1808 BCE. Afterward, his brother, Seleucus IV, became king. In 1887 BCE, Antiochus IV's hostage position was exchanged with Seleucus IV's son, Demetrius. In 175 BCE, Seleucus IV was assassinated by his own minister, Heliodorus. Heliodorus then attempted to seize the throne, as Demetrius was still a hostage in Rome, but Antiochus IV, with the support of the king of Pergamon, defeated Heliodorus and became king of the Seleucid Empire. In reality, Antiochus IV was not the legitimate heir to the throne. The rightful king was Demetrius, the son of Seleucus IV. But Antiochus seized the throne because the opportunity presented itself. At first, he did not call himself king, but rather co-regent with another young son of Seleucus IV, also named Antiochus. In 170 BCE, the child died, allegedly murdered by Antiochus IV, and he became the sole ruler. So Antiochus IV became king by removing three individuals: Heliodorus, Demetrius, and the young Antiochus. The question is, which number king of the Seleucid dynasty was Antiochus IV? Formally, he was the 8th king, but if we include the two sons of Seleucus IV, he becomes the 10th. And if we also count Heliodorus, who killed Seleucus IV, Antiochus IV would be the 11th. In 171 BCE, several Jews like Jason and Menelaus made a covenant with Antiochus IV, overthrowing the high priest Onias III. Jason initially became high priest, followed later by Menelaus. A civil war broke out between Jason and Menelaus. Around 3.5 years later, in 67 BCE, Antiochus IV, having just been forced out of Egypt by the Romans, unleashed his fury upon Jerusalem. He ordered his army to mercilessly slaughter anyone they encountered and to kill those hiding in their homes. There was mass killing of the young and the old, of women and children, of virgins and infants. In just 3 days, 80,000 people died, 40,000 by violence, and another 40,000 were sold as slaves. This is recorded in 2 Maccabees 5:11-14. Antiochus IV banned Jewish religious rituals and traditions, and the Jerusalem temple was forcibly transformed into a Greco-Jewish syncretic cult that included the worship of Zeus. A statue of Zeus was placed inside the Jerusalem temple. The Greek historian Diodorus wrote that Antiochus sacrificed a large pig in front of the statue of Moses and on the altar of God that stood in the outer court, and sprinkled it with the blood of the sacrifice. He also ordered that the books through which they were taught to hate all other nations should be doused with broth made from pork flesh, and he extinguished the lamp, which they called eternal, that continuously burned in the temple. Lastly, he forced the high priest and other Jews to eat pork. This triggered the Maccabean revolt, which lasted roughly 3.5 years as well. In 164 BCE, Antiochus IV died in the eastern region. The cause of his death is unclear. Some say he died of illness, others say he was assassinated, and a rabbinic text, Megillat Antiochus, claims he drowned. This rabbinic text is not considered a historical account, as it was written about 400 years after the events. So the exact reason for Antiochus IV's death remains uncertain. In that same year, 164 BCE, the rededication of the temple took place, which is commemorated by Jews as Hanukkah. From this point, we should be able to see that the story of the ram and the goat in Daniel chapter 8, then the kingdoms of the north and south up to the abomination of desolation in Daniel chapter 11, all speak about Judea up to the time of Antiochus IV Epiphanes. So, it's very likely that the dream of Nebuchadnezzar's statue in Daniel chapter 2 and the 4 beasts rising from the sea in Daniel chapter 7 are also speaking about the same thing. The 4th beast, commonly interpreted by Christians as Rome, can instead be interpreted as the Seleucid kingdom. The legs of iron and clay may refer to the Ptolemaic and Seleucid kingdoms, which took turns ruling over Judea. Now, perhaps some of you are still unsure whether the iron and clay refer to the Ptolemaic and Seleucid kingdoms. So, I want to quote Daniel 2:43, which explains the relationship between the iron and the clay. As you saw the iron mixed with soft clay, so they will mix with one another in marriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. This clearly refers to a relationship by intermarriage that does not succeed. It can be interpreted as the marriage between a Seleucid king and a Ptolemaic princess, which ended tragically as we saw earlier. Then the 10 toes of Nebuchadnezzar's statue and the 10 horns of the 4th beast can be interpreted to mean that Antiochus IV was the 10th or 11th king of the Seleucid dynasty. Therefore, the end times, the stone from heaven, and the rest can be interpreted as the end of Judea's colonization and the independence of the Jewish Hasmonean kingdom. The Messiah referred to is the Maccabees. Thus, this interpretation explains that all the prophecies in the book of Daniel were fulfilled before Jesus. The next question is, if that's the case, then why was the book of Daniel written, or why was it included in the Bible? To answer this, we must look at a few other important facts. First, what language was the Book of Daniel written in? The script used in the original manuscript of Daniel was Square Aramaic script, which later evolved into modern Hebrew script. This script was only adopted by the Jews after Babylon was defeated by Persia. It became the standard script for all Jews after around 200 BCE. Then the language used is a mix of Hebrew, Aramaic, and several Greek terms. One example is found in Daniel 3 or 5. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. The word translated as harp in Hebrew is psanterin, which is borrowed from the Greek psalterion. There is also keteros, which comes from the Greek kitharis, translated as lyre, and sabika, which comes from the Greek sambike, translated as trigon. This is similar to how the Indonesian word for computer is a loan word from English. The question, of course, is when did these words first appear in the world? The word psalterion first appears in Greek records in the 3rd century BCE. Therefore, we can conclude that the Book of Daniel could not have been written by Daniel himself during the Babylonian or Persian periods. The Book of Daniel was most likely written after the 3rd century BCE, possibly even after Greek cultural influence had entered Judea. That's why some historians say the Book of Daniel was written after the Maccabean period to legitimize the Hasmonean kingdom. Then what about Jesus mentioning the abomination of desolation in Matthew 24, or 15? So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. We can interpret this not as Jesus saying the abomination of desolation in Daniel was yet to come, but rather that someone like Antiochus IV would come again. So that is another way to interpret the book of Daniel. If you enjoy content like this and want deeper discussions on other prophecies, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Write your thoughts in the comments section. Do you agree with the interpretation we've explored, or do you prefer the more traditional interpretation you've heard before? See you in the next video.
Theophilus yang mulia, banyak orang menyusun berita tentang apa yang telah terjadi, seperti yang disampaikan oleh mereka yang adalah saksi mata dan pelayan firman. Karena itu setelah aku menyelidiki segala peristiwa itu dengan seksama, aku mengambil keputusan untuk membukukannya dengan teratur bagimu, supaya engkau dapat mengetahui bahwa segala yang diajarkan kepadamu sungguh benar. Theophilus yang mulia, banyak orang menyusun berita tentang apa yang telah terjadi, seperti yang disampaikan oleh mereka yang adalah saksi mata